Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael cannot Motown sing you the truth about the Strait of Hormuz, so I can. Lock in, ladies and gents. We are going to get into the Middle East veggies before we get into the dessert of the sex offender getting the death penalty. I know. We have a lot on the docket for today's episode, so let's begin with the Middle East. Go. We got just one day in after launching the massive military escort mission in the Middle East. We've been covering this Project Freedom shit. And apparently, President Trump has already announced late Tuesday that the U.S. is already pausing it in the Strait of Hormuz. He cited great progress in diplomatic talks with Tehran, claiming that a complete and final agreement to end the months-long war may be within reach. Well, okay, what does the end really look like here? The pause, according to him, comes after the request from mediators in Pakistan and follows a 48-hour period of intense naval skirmishes with that threatened to shatter a fragile month-old ceasefire. The escort operation, which was designed to guide hundreds of stranded tankers through the blockaded waterways, on hold. The U.S. is not backing down entirely, though. According to him, he's made it clear that the naval blockade of the Iranian ports is remaining in full force and effect. Well, then, what do you do? They've already made it clear that they have no interest in having a real ceasefire, a real deal to end the war until you unblock their ports. All right, whatever. They're saying this is to maintain pressure on the regime. And it's not to say that we didn't do very much when the operation was happening. We saw a lot of fireworks, to say the least. The U.S. reported that it sank 7 Iranian attack boats that tried to interfere with the first guided convoys. And despite the president's optimism, the situation on the water is still remaining precarious, according to people who are seeing it. Just as the pause was announced, reports surfaced of a cargo vessel being struck by a projectile. And the United Arab Emirates reported on a second day of drone and missile alerts. Oh, fun. And then we got Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasizing that while the offensive phase of war Operation Epic Fury is over, the U.S. remains ready to respond if fired upon. You know what? Actually, we're going to play a quick Rubio clip, which is him downplaying the fact that gas across the country right now is at an average price of $4.50, and it's and my heart started to break. My Midwest heart started to break once gas prices touched $4 here just this last week. It was tragic. The area I was in was holding out with the high threes, but god damn it, they just crossed over, and now it's over. And now Marco Rubio is going to tell you why that's not a big deal. Tell me, give it to me straight, big ears.
The price of gas in the country right now is $4.50. Do you have a thought on how long Americans are supposed to kind of accept this? Do you think it will affect Republicans' majorities in the midterms?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the politics of it. You can tell me
what. You're a politician who won't speculate on the politics? That's a lawyer. You go to a lawyer and he goes, I can't speculate on the law of that situation.
Look, it's obviously being driven by global events. That was true during the Russia-Ukraine war as well, where you saw that come up. Look, we don't benefit from the Straits as much as other countries. I don't know, you've seen what the gas prices are like in other parts of the world that are really suffering big time.
Oh my God, if the Biden administration was doing this level of hey, other countries are worse, then every Trump supporter would have been like, that's our government refusing to take responsibility.
So we're very fortunate that the United States, I believe right now, is like the world's largest net exporter of oil and natural gas as a result, not because of this war, but because we have this capacity. So we've been insulated to some degree. We're obviously still vulnerable to some extent to global prices, and so...
To some extent. I want to make it clear, though, to everybody why this war is actually... Okay, if you want to take a 4D chess image perspective on it, I'm going to say something that is going to sound crazy to people who are going, Trump's an idiot, he's getting into this war, he doesn't really know what he's doing, he's breaking up ties with the European Union, he's making America a much more isolated country, he's going after territory around the Americas. Most people see all of these actions and they go, it's the mind of somebody who doesn't understand politics and is actively trying to just get their agenda through, but they don't realize the consequences. Well, let's take for a second the idea that maybe he does understand the consequences. What are the consequences of this? The rest of the world, more specifically, what are the 3 regions of the world that do not export more oil than they import? These 3 regions include Europe, East Asia, and Oceania, more specifically Australia. These regions are going to be incredibly dependent on outward sources of oil. Now, when it comes to how much the United States produces, we're actually pretty net neutral. We have enough so to where when it comes to our reserves, we would be able to power up our own economy. We would be able to start if we wanted to get another oil boom running. You could absolutely start putting out more derricks. You could start signing more leases for people to start tilling more land. Not tilling, that's farming, but like getting out there on the land, surveying, and then fucking actually selling it off to these people who are going to make a profit with it. The Americas are sitting on a vast sea of oil. And then once Canada becomes the 51st state, as maybe he wants it to be, then we would just tap all of their oil reserves. Then we tap Venezuela's reserves. Eventually, when we create Pax Americana 2.0, Pax Americana, for many who are uninitiated, was the state of relative world peace after 1945 that was established mostly by the American superpower, that was established after the fall of every other major world power at that time. Soviets were really the only major competitor after that. The Brits were kind of in a state of shock. Their industry was wrecked. It was absolutely, they bombed out, whatever. We don't have time to get into all of this. Trump wants to create a vision of America where the United States is, instead of being involved in this transnational, we are in this global alliance. He realizes that the world is becoming multipolar. He realizes that we're becoming a world where the Chinese are trying to get their currency in the hands of more oil importers, people who are working on docks. Chinese want their currency to be the world reserve, and they are the direct competitors for the reason that the naval blockades and whatnot, everything, the world runs off of the United States guaranteeing the safety of the waterways, is because the United States has always been the major power when it comes to the military. They're beginning to build up their military in East Asia. They're beginning to in other regions of the world. I do see that the Chinese are watching our conflict in Persia, in Iran, and they do see it as a positive to them. They see us breaking down elements of our military. They're also seeing that a lot of our military tech is not as sophisticated as we claimed it was. A lot of our military tech, these F-1s, these major ones that we've had in development for 30, maybe 50 years, they were built for 2-week-long conflicts. A lot of these things are breaking down. A lot of these things they're repair-wise in the gutter. And the United States, unfortunately, is proving to be a little less able to just decimate than was originally believed. People are realizing that the United States was most of the time just flexing its power in a lot of these instances. They were bombing pirates and things like that. Let's get back to the original point. Trump, whether you see it or not, recognizes that the world is becoming multipolar. If you don't know what that means, it means that we have multiple superpowers now around the world, rather than the America-centric model that we're all comfortable and familiar with, that has been mostly the reason for our incline in economy. We've gutted out industry. There's no factories anymore and whatnot. We're getting rid of that mostly in America. Sure, Trump's trying to get it back. He's trying to whatever. He's trying to create an insulated technate state, essentially, if you don't know. It's sort of the idea that we're going to become independent. We're going to eventually maybe wash people's money. We're going to have a massive national wipeout of banks. We don't want people to be getting money from their parents' bank accounts. We don't want them to be getting it all through via inheritance. We're going to maybe have a false flag type operation where we knock out all of the world's banks, and eventually that'll just create a global reset where you have to resort to a different form of currency. Maybe it's something created by AI. This is when you get really deep into the idea that people want to create a brand new world, but whatever. Marco Rubio clearly is just I don't think that he has all of this on his mind. I think he has on his mind, how am I going to kill J.D. Vance before 2028?
But in the end, we're more insulated than other countries, even though that's not welcome news to Americans that are paying more at the pump, no doubt about it. And it certainly is one of the circumstances of it. There are people that we're predicting would be much higher at this point, but we're not taking that for granted. Suffice it to say that think about it this way. Everybody needs to think about it this way. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, and they decided to close the straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8.
He's the American Bibi Netanyahu. Marco Rubio is the American Bibi Netanyahu. If Iran had a nuclear weapon today... By the way, Iran has the uranium. They could make a nuclear bomb in 10 weeks. And if that terrifies anybody, it should.
A gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon. And a nuclear-armed Iran could do whatever the hell they want with the straits, and there's nothing anyone would be able to do about it. And that's one of the many reasons, apart from like the massive loss of life in a nuclear strike, why Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. I mean, so this is an example of, if they had a nuclear weapon, they closed the straits and they would tell the world, what are you going to do about it? We have a nuclear weapon, we can attack you with it. That's the world none of us want to leave behind. It won't happen under this president's watch, but some future president and future, and the future Americans will have to deal with this. So just one more example of why these guys can never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
Well, that was not the original question. The original question was about gas prices, but excellent pivot. Let's get a little bit of an update from ABC News about how much winning, quite frankly, is going on. Winning.
Just 48 hours after saying the U.S. would help guide stranded cargo ships through the Strait of Hormuz, President Trump announcing he is pausing Project Freedom for a short period of time. Warning this morning, if Iran does not make a deal, the bombing starts. Trump writing on social media, it will be at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. Just hours earlier, Secretary of State Marco Rubio dubbed Project Freedom the next stage of the war.
The operation is over.
This is very similar to how I used to have arguments with my sibling. This is very similar to the state of mind of like, you are not willing to come to the table. You're not willing to see me for who I am. You're not willing to listen to me. Ergo, I'm not willing to listen to you. It's just circles and circles and circles. It's the way that kids argue. It's the way that once, like, eventually you grow past that. You know what I mean? You grow past that stage of arguing with your sibling where it's just circles and circles of, no, I'm actually correct. No, I'm actually correct. And then you're not actually even listening to each other's points. You get past that point eventually, but on the national scale, I don't know that humans are ever able to evolve past that point.
Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this Project of Freedom.
But it's unclear what, if any, progress.
Every single, argument, the nuclear option is, everybody's threatening, I'm going to go get mom.
There's been in negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. It's the latest of several reversals for the war that's now in its 10th week. The president launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28th. On April 7th, both sides agreeing to a ceasefire. And then on Sunday, the president announced Project Freedom, only to pause it 2 days later. This morning, the Strait of Hormuz remains at a virtual standstill. Only 2 commercial ships crossing under Project Freedom, more than 1,500 lined up waiting.
What are you going to do?
Amid uncertainty about the state of the fragile ceasefire. Iranian state media airing this video claiming to show the Iranian military firing warning shots at U.S. Navy ships near the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. retaliating, sinking 6 Iranian military boats. Secretary Rubio claiming that response is just part of a new phase of the war.
We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation.
The president insisting that the ceasefire is still in place.
Kind of like how NATO is a defensive organization.
They fired at U.S. ships several times in the last 24 hours. What do they need to do to violate the ceasefire?
Well, you'll find out, because I'll let you know. They know what to do, and they know what to do, and they know what not to do, more importantly.
So the president is still set to head to China next week for a trip that was supposed to be focused on trade. Overnight, we saw Iran's foreign minister land there for meetings with his Chinese counterpart, as China says they're willing to play a greater role in brokering peace in the Middle East, George.
And Rachel, here at home.
You know what? Actually, Iran is perfectly fine to have China negotiate the peace. Iran is actually hoping that China is involved in negotiating this peace. Do you know why? It makes the United States look like they're on the same level as this tiny state in the Middle East. It looks like we need China to be the bigger power that steps in. This is similar to how the United States was big on peace negotiations back in the 70s. You can look at peace accords. You can look at 60s. People were going all around, and we were like, let's negotiate these little peace deals between 2 little countries because it establishes that we are dad stepping in. We are the fatherly figure. These are the 2 little states. China would love it for the image, and Iran would love it for the image. Not because it makes them look good, because it makes us look worse.
Oh, and the president had some successes with his Republican retribution campaign overnight.
Yes, George, and it's unusual to see a president get involved in a state legislative primary race and to see so much money be poured in. But the president vowed political payback for a group of Republicans in Indiana who refused to go along with his demands to redraw the congressional maps in that state to favor Republicans. Well, overnight, at least 5 of the 7 candidates the president backed defeated the incumbents, showing the president's influence over Republicans ahead of the midterms election. George.
Rachel Scott, thanks.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Whatever. Middle East, we've gotten through the veggies, ladies and gentlemen.